What would it be like to be labeled as one of the best lawyers within your country? Beyond that, what would it be like to be an NHL, a National Hockey League franchise owner? Well, I was lucky enough to kind of kill two birds with one stone in this conversation with Peter Brauti. He is just that. He is this renowned lawyer within Canada, and also he is leading, amongst others, the Seattle Kraken, the NHL's latest franchise club. So our conversation kind of touches on both areas. And as far as the law goes, we get into things like what is law? We dive into the weeds about that. He also shares advice to lawyers about, gaining traction within the profession. We also have a look at, the depictions of law, how accurate they are, maybe some of the inaccuracies of it. And we also even look at things like compassion within law. Yeah, you might not necessarily connect that up, but after listening to Peter explain, you might be changing your tune on that point. On the other side, on the NHL franchise side, we get into some pretty interesting conversations about that. And what was it like, choosing jersey colors, choosing the name of that team, and also, some of the people that he works with, his co-owners, and hint, there's some pretty big names that you're probably familiar with. Now, noted, this is just a video highlights compilation of the interview that I had with Peter, but I would encourage you to go check out the full audio version, the podcast version, wherever you access your podcast. Just do that search for Life as a ... All right, well, let's get into it. About you, but when I think of law, my mind instantly goes to courtrooms, lawyers prosecuting, lawyers defending. Obviously, there's a lot more to law than just that. So here's a clip of Peter kind of breaking that down. And then also he shares his speciality, what he's based his career on.
Like the law is everywhere around you, and you can look at anything. It doesn't have to be what people think. A lot of people think about lawyers as doing business deals, and that's one way to think about law. Other people think about law because they're purchasing a house, so it's a real estate transaction. People get divorced, and so they think of family law. And my specialty in particular is criminal law, criminal and regulatory law. And so, really, I'm dealing with individuals who have found themselves, for one reason or another, at odds with the law or the police or the state, and I help people navigate through that. And sometimes it's damage control, and it's about getting the best of a series of bad results for them, just getting the best outcome that we can, even though there's going to be punishment. Or in other cases, it's fully litigating it in a trial and hopefully coming out the other end with a verdict of not guilty. So that's really my wheelhouse, where I spend my time. Is in criminal law.
Well, this next clip represents something that I found really compelling within the interview with Peter. And this was talking about his background. Now, Peter himself, he has his law degree, but he also has two other degrees that he attained before going into law school. And one, political science. Yeah, okay. You can kind of equate that and match that up. And the other, I'm going to let Peter introduce that, is a little bit different. And this is one that's certainly non-traditional, but as you'll hear, this is one that Peter feels really has helped him in his career. And I think it's great for any young or aspiring lawyer to hear this type of information. There are so many different ways of making your way into the career, into the profession, into a particular industry. So yeah, have a listen to this one.
People often say to me, well, do you think that theater degree or those theater courses or that interest in theater has assisted you in having success, particularly as a litigator? And I think it does.
Because in what ways would you say?
Well, part of being a litigator is being able to present things in a persuasive way. Okay. I do a lot of jury work, but whether it's juries or judges or it's witnesses, having good presentation and knowing how to tell a good story and present it well is a big part of litigation.
Yeah.
So there, you might not think that there's a connection with theater, but there actually is.
As a fan of a lot of shows based around law, I think A Few Good Men. I know it's a little bit of an older one. Tom Cruise. It was a great one. You should check it out. Outside of that, Law and Order. There's a ton, right? As a fan of that genre, I had this question about the depictions of law within media, how accurate they were. And here's Peter answering that for us.
Is there anything that you would say, doesn't exactly hold up the way it's depicted? And maybe this element of the job is way more important and versus this other thing that's always depicted is less so. Is there anything like that?
Well, what I would say is there's actually some really great realistic TV shows in relation to law, some great movies, but the big difference is, they condense it down within an hour. And so, you're looking at a TV show or a movie that shows you the process from very beginning to end in an hour or 2 hours. In real life, that's something that might take 2 years. So while people think it's really exciting when you're watching it, in the media, it's a lot more long and drawn out, and there's a lot more work that goes into it than people expect.
On the heels of that previous clip, depictions of law, I do kind of feel that lawyers do get this bad rap from time to time within the media, about what they do. And maybe that's part and parcel of, the profession. But I do want to present this other side to you as well. And this is a clip where Peter's explaining, like the actual heart that goes into the work itself, and the ramifications for some of these cases that you're working on, and just what level of impact you can really deliver to people within their lives. And I thought that was a really important point to kind of draw reference to when considering this line of work.
Some cases are more serious than others in some ways. So, you can't necessarily equate a murder with a theft of a candy bar. But at the same time, the kid who steals the candy bar, depending on how that case goes, can alter that person's course through life at a very early stage.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we see these cases where you get a 19-year-old and that person, has too much to drink and gets in a bar fight. If they get convicted, for example, they might not be able to be bonded, which means, they can't get certain jobs. They can't travel to the US, all kinds of things. And that can lead, some people to sort of giving up and not turning their life around. And you can be a big part of that, not just as a lawyer and getting them the result, but I also, in those cases, often spend a little time talking to the client during and after the process about, getting a second chance and straightening things out.
Now, in having this wide-ranging career talk about law, about being a lawyer with Peter, he was dropping gems of information and advice throughout. So here are a couple clips where he's giving direct advice to young and aspiring lawyers. And yeah, I think you should really listen in on this if this is a career that you are potentially considering.
The things that I always tell the young lawyers here is it's all about outworking the other side and spending the time. And some people think that you become a lawyer and you were just a natural, like you had it in you, but that's not been my experience. My experience is it's the people who work the hardest, who are the most dedicated, who care the most, that usually end up on top. The other thing that I tell young lawyers, and this is sort of in any profession, that if you're really good at what you do and you're really dedicated and you're good at it, the money will come. Don't worry about the money. Like I can tell you right now, there's lots of ways to define a win, but let's just say if you win 100 cases in a row, you're not going to have to worry about how much money you can charge. I mean, the money is going to come if you're getting the results, right? So I don't think you go into these things expecting that you're going to have a decent lifestyle. But again, if you really throw yourself into the profession and dedicate yourself to successfully doing cases, financially you're going to be fine. So worry about the result first. And the money is going to be ancillary to that.
All right, well, this might be a nice point to kind of segue the conversation into the other part of the discussion that we had, which of course is centered on being an NHL, National Hockey League, franchise owner of the Seattle Kraken. And yeah, I mean, as a sports guy, yeah, I love this. This was something I was dying to get into. What was it like, being on the ground floor when you're starting out this new club and you're entering it into the league? I had a slew of questions for him, and yeah, Peter so patiently answered all of them. So yeah, check it out.
Beyond that, I mean, like, what has it been like as far as that ride so far? I mean, how they started out as any expansion franchise, some struggles early on, but now, I mean, this season, as we started this conversation off, entering into a playoff game tonight, no less. I mean,
it's been unbelievable. I mean, I was in on the ground floor of this, so I was. We were making the application, and in order to apply to the NHL, you have to sell 10,000 seats, season seats with deposits before you can make the application. And I think the quickest that anybody ever did the 10,000 was Vegas, and I want to say they did it in 3 weeks. We did it in 12 minutes.
Wow.
So we blew the doors off this thing, and then so the application was successful, and then the next thing was naming the team, and so being part of naming the team in the process, and then it was coming up with the logo and the colors and the jerseys, which was fantastic, and then we had to build a brand new arena, and then we needed to get an AHL team, which is in Coachella Valley, right near Palm Springs, and come up with a name for that. And then we had to hire a general manager, and then we had our expansion draft. And then in the first year, we finished 30th of 32 teams, which was a bit disappointing. And this year, I want to say we finished 12th or 13th. But it is the single largest turnaround of an NHL team in NHL history from one season to the next.
Dramatic, 100%.
And now in a couple hours, I've got our first playoff game. So think about all the things that I just went through and what a whirlwind it was, but what a positive, amazing experience.
Here's one more clip as well of Peter explaining, some of the people that he's gotten to work with, the experiences that have evolved outside of like just the day-to-day sort of operations and being involved with that, with the Seattle Kraken, some of the co-owners. And that I found to be quite interesting and quite compelling. So yeah, have a listen.
But just the different people that I've got to meet through the process.
I bet.
For example, I got to meet Marshawn Lynch, and Marshawn and I became friends, and I was able to help open the door for him to buy a little piece of the Kraken and become a co-owner. Would I have been able to spend time with Marshawn otherwise? I don't think so.
Right.
Jerry Bruckheimer, the Hollywood producer, director, Top Gun, Pirates of the Caribbean, all these sorts. He's one of my fellow partners in the Kraken. So is Andy Jassy, who is the CEO now of Amazon, took over from Jeff Bezos. Meeting these guys is just it's shocking. I don't know what I thought they would be like, but it's just unbelievable, like what nice guys they are.
Yeah,
obviously very brave, very driven, but how normal and pleasant they are to deal with. And then to form friendships with them, it's almost surreal.
All right. Well, I do think this might be a nice point to kind of wrap things up. However, I do encourage you to listen to the full audio version of this conversation. We get into so much more on the law side of things, as well on the NHL side. On the NHL side, really quickly, there's a really engaging story about how all of that came to be that you don't want to miss. Just do a search for Life as a ... wherever you access your podcast, and you can find it. And while I do have your attention here, big ask, big favor time, I would really, really appreciate a like or subscribe. Yeah, the only way that YouTube knows to put this content in front of others, expose it, introduce it to other young people or mid-career professionals, is if people interact with these videos. It's the best way. So yeah, like or subscribe, would really, really appreciate that. All right, well, I do look forward to seeing you on the next video of Life as a, and yeah, until then, we'll see you later.